For those joining in today, my name is Trip Durham, and it is my pleasure over the last 9 seasons now to handle public address at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And I thought it might be fun with the 2018-19 basketball season on top of us to gather with a few other PA announcers from around the country to learn a little bit about what they've done for a living, or at least as a hobby with their schools, tap into some best practices, just take you behind the microphone a little bit to learn personalities. And as we get the roundtable started here today, I will do just a brief introduction to make sure that we're not stepping on top of each other. And then after we clear everybody out with an intro, then we will start with some questions and really see where we go over the next 30 or 35 minutes or so. So since he's the elder statesman, I will introduce Chuck White from UCLA. Chuck, 25 years behind the microphone. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so happy to be here because, we never really get a chance to see each other, talk to each other. And Trip, thank you for arranging this. This is awesome.
It's my pleasure. My wife thought that I was a bit of a loon to pull this together, but I'm glad you guys have joined in. Patrick at Kentucky, 12 years, if my notes are correct.
That is correct. Yep, 12 years, and it never gets old. It's always
and
fun.
Jim's at Villanova. Jim, you said this is your 8th season. You started back in 2011, and that was brilliant timing.
The first year was rough, but it's been a pleasure since then. 2 national championships, next to one of the greatest coaches in the country here in Philadelphia. So it's been a blast the last couple of years on the main line.
So Chuck, again, being the old sawtooth here, 25 years. How did you get started with the Bruins?
Yeah, as these guys know, you talk about Kentucky, you talk about Villanova, Duke, the great basketball programs, the little history of UCLA too in basketball. And there was a PA announcer who started there, a guy named Don Sawyer. He actually opened Pauley Pavilion in West LA. And I was a student at UCLA, and I was just always in awe of Don. And the opportunity came up. Don was retiring. He's getting pretty old. And as you guys know, it's a very physically tough job. It's not easy. A lot of people say, oh, gosh, I'd love to do that. But, there's no checking out when the game starts, as you know. And I was very, very fortunate. At right place, right time. And, to be at Pauley, it's just a blast.
Jim, yourself, what's your backstory at Villanova?
Well, I'm a Villanova guy from the get-go. I grew up in Philadelphia, went to Villanova, graduated in 96, became the football PA announcer back in 1996. So we had some great Villanova football teams. Brian Westbrook, who was an Eagles legend, started doing women's basketball in the early 2000s, and finally got the men's job in 11. So I've been a Villanova guy, Philly guy my whole life, culminating in 2011 getting the men's gig, which is, something I was striving for. And when I finally got it, I've been loving it ever since.
Patrick, it's fun for me to be on with you, obviously, given the history between Duke and Kentucky over the years. This is your 12th season coming up. So, Patrick, how did you get started?
Actually, as an undergrad, I attended Transylvania University in Lexington, a small liberal arts school. And at the time, I was their PA announcer when I was a freshman. So I did that for over a decade. And at the same time, I was working at the flagship radio station for Kentucky sports. And so through a lot of that, I got to know a lot of the folks at Kentucky. I would fill in for them when they needed someone. And then back at 2007, I came on doing that full time. And as a lifelong Kentucky fan, that obviously, like with the rest of you guys, I mean, that's just a dream come true. And it's, it's a passion. You do it for the love of the game, and 12 years later, I'm still here and really enjoying it.
I got really lucky at Cameron. I was handling football during the 2009 season, and Dr. Art Chandler, who had been the public address announcer at Cameron Indoor for 40 years, decided that he was going to hang up the microphone, and sort of right place, right time. I think a lot of you know, even in business, if you hang around in one particular area when there is a need, if you've done your job, somebody may say, well, what do you think about doing this as well? And for me, that was the case at Cameron. And this is my 9th season, but I think it'll be my 4th season without a Plumlee brother. So that's sort of how I mark my time at Cameron Indoor. Chuck, when you and I first started talking a couple of weeks ago, you thought you might have a couple of really neat questions to ask the folks around the table. So shoot, what have you got?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you guys, a lot of times things happen in our worlds outside of being a public address announcer. Like there's an emergency that comes up, something that comes up. Has there ever been something crazy where it's really squeezed your time to the point where, uh-oh, I'm about ready to miss this game, and there's got to be somebody there. Has that kind of panic moment ever occurred for you guys? I personally, it has me. It just happens.
Well,
Yeah,
especially with traffic in LA, I would think so. Patrick,
Oh
go
my.
ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that primarily back when I guess it was my first year of doing PA, and I was also doing the stats for the radio network in football. And as it turned out, we had a home football game followed by a home basketball game with not a lot of room for error. And of course, the football game went into overtime and another overtime and another overtime. And you're just trying to get across town to get to the arena, which is not on campus. So I made it with very little time to spare. But thankfully, I got there before the official book did. The book got there with about 2 minutes to go before the buzzer because the guy at the football stadium had it. So that's probably about as close a call as I've had. Thank goodness.
Chuck, I've never missed a game, but I always have an opening night dream. It always seems to happen about a month before either football season or basketball season. And I don't know why it is, but I'm always on a two-wheel bicycle. I've always got a basket on the handlebars with a radio in it. And it says that the game is starting. So thankfully, I've never missed a game, but I feel like through this dream every year, every season, that I probably missed 50 of them at this point.
Oh, I'm totally tracking. I've had similar concerns. I do the Rose Bowl as well, so I announce Rose Bowl games and all those things over there. UCLA is attempting to play football this year. We've had some difficulties, but I almost missed a game at the Rose Bowl. And as you guys know who do football, oh my goodness gracious, that's a prolonged effect. It's easily a 6 or 7 hour cycle, and you can't be late. And there are multiple lineups, multiple things going on with television, ABC or ESPN or whoever, and tying into that, and timing and sequencing with directors and that kind of thing. Pretty wild.
Jim, in the Philly market, I'm sure you've got some traffic as well. So have you ever missed anything?
We have traffic and weather here in the East Coast. That's never been an issue, but a couple years ago, it was my second year of doing it. I think it was the 2012 season. I would leave around 3:30 or 4 o'clock for a 7 o'clock tip, and I'm listening to the local news station for a traffic report, and I hear them say, "And Villanova playing at 6 o'clock tonight." And I had them on 7 o'clock. You know how TV rules the roost in college basketball. Thankfully, I got there in time, but it was a lot hairier than I would like to have been. Oops.
So hard. Do you guys have a particular style? Does your style fit the microphone? Does your style fit the building? Does your style fit your personality? There's a little bit of showmanship that we all have to have, but do you have a style about you?
I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm an old schooler. I'm kind of an old school guy. I think the game should just present itself. And there was a great producer of music a long time ago, a guy named Phil Spector, and he had kind of an idea of a wall of sound. And I think we should just become a part of the entire experience. We shouldn't be so profoundly out there that it's like over the top. And it's almost like a tractor pull race nowadays. You hear these guys just screaming and yelling and all this stuff. I don't think so. I think it's more understated. You perhaps agree, Patrick. It's like that's not our job, really. You know what I mean?
Jim, as loud as it gets in your building, and Patrick, certainly as loud as it gets at Rupp, do you guys feel like that you have to change your presentation, which obviously then affects maybe what your style is?
That with my style, when I came in 12 years ago, for one thing, I had the privilege of knowing the PA announcer that started when Adolph Rupp was at Kentucky. He started in the mid-'60s, and he actually just died a couple of years ago. And I got to know him so well and had such respect for the way he did it, because that was at the time, Chuck, like you're saying, where it was, right down the middle. It was factual. You're not part of the game really. The gentleman that came after him, that was about the time Rick Pitino was getting to Kentucky, and it was becoming more of the main event. That was really the kind of the atmosphere in the early '90s. And I like to describe my style as just somewhere in between. I try to be just very professional, very clean. When it's time to get excited, they're going to know I'm excited. But I always try to make sure that I'm being extremely fair to the other team as well. I mean, they're our guests here, and I want to make sure that my level of excitement is appropriate for what's going on, but also showing a lot of respect to the other team. And and Chuck, like you're saying, I feel like a lot of people describe game officials and referees as the best ones are the ones that you don't see, and I think there's a lot of truth in that for those that do what we do as well.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you guys. Down the middle, I'm not a big yeller, but there was times when it's needed. You're playing a big game, the crowd is hyped, you can kind of feel the energy. I'll feed off the crowd a lot. Our home building is only 6,500 students, 6,500 people altogether. So when that place gets loud, that gets loud, and I get fired up, and the crowd gets fired up along. So a lot of my energy will come from the crowd, and I think it goes a little bit of both ways.
Jim, Cameron Indoor is only 9,300 seats, and I didn't realize your building was that small. Do you ever find yourself laying out, not opening the microphone up at all because of what is happening on the floor during a dunk, during a shot, during a time in which the crowd is just out of their minds?
It really depends on the situation. Here, we play our bigger games at the Wells Fargo Center where the Sixers play. So we'll go from 6,500 to 21,000. Last year, we played every one at the Wells Fargo because they were redoing the pavilion. We have a brand new, beautiful on-campus arena this year. But there's times when, you want to sit back and just take it in, and just enjoy what's going on because, like you guys said, we're kind of behind the scenes. Let the game happen. Let the people have fun. We're there to help tell the story, but if it needs be, just keep the mic shut and enjoy it.
How does it work at Cameron, Trip? How does it work? I mean, you've had some experiences there. I know that building gets crazy. When UCLA's visited there, it just sounds like it's off the charts, How do you handle that?
I will lay out from time to time. Part of my theory, even with football, is that the sight lines being what they are, especially in Cameron, people can see what has happened. So there's no need for me to try to rise above their excitement level to reinforce what it is they just saw. So if it is a dunk by Zion Williamson and everybody's going bananas, I'm not going to turn around and say, hey, basket by Zion Williamson. Just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
You're exactly right.
The first
key on that is, and I agree with you, it's like, in each of our respective areas, we're talking about people who know basketball. I mean, this is not really educated basketball fans, and they're seeing the same doggone thing we are, They know a mistake when they see it, and there's nowhere to hide on that either. I'm sorry to interrupt it.
No, it's fine. My first North Carolina Duke game in 2011, the sound technicians at the end of the scores table actually had a sound meter to register. And after the game, I asked them what the equivalency was, and I can't remember what the number the meter hit. And they said the equivalency was an fighter jet engine. And so at that point, there's no need for me to try to open up the button to say, basket by Mason Plumlee. People know, and people wouldn't be able to hear it anyway. So I think it's to a lot of your points that you just have to read the venue and then decide how it is you're going to go.
Trip, what is one of the, what is you guys, one of the craziest things that's ever happened to you? Like, we've all had those moments, and you know what I'm talking about, where things just go sideways. And there is nowhere where a PA announcer can hide, especially in basketball, being right on the center line. Has there been that moment? I mean, I can share mine. It's a stupid moment. We were doing the Elite Eight games at Staples Center here in LA. And, you got North Carolina, you got your usual suspects there. And suspects, I say to you, Trip. But the we're ready to go. CBS is there. You know, the whole thing is ready to roll. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They want me to do the starting lineups, which you guys have done. And I get to the mic and I press the button, and it is nothing. I mean nothing. Everything is out. The entire desk, all power is out at Staples Center. Now this is very bad. so the NCAA guys are rushing around, and you know what to do. And CBS is trying to lag. So CBS is across the way, you know, with Jim Nance and that group, and they throw it to New York. 9.5 minutes of absolute the horrific time. So I just stepped away from the mic. Technical guys are running in, trying to plug things in underneath the desk and do all sorts of crazy stuff. That was the worst moment. I mean, there's nowhere to go. And New York is kind of stumbling and fumbling, trying to do something. And anything like that ever happen to you guys?
Nothing like that. That's wild.
Crazy stuff, man.
Yeah, me either, and I'll knock on wood that it doesn't.
I was behind the mic for a women's game at Cameron, and you know your left brain and your right brain sometimes are in sync, but at other times they're not. And in this one case for the women's game, they were not working with one another. I'm getting ready to mark something on my sheet, and for some reason, this hand pushed the button, and I said, "For the love of Pete, just shoot it," and everywhere. And my show caller looked at me. I looked at my hand, and I'm like, "What did you just do to me?" And you're
long
right,
as that's
Chuck.
all you said, that's fine.
You know, you're right about that. And Chuck, you're right. There's nowhere to run and hide. You got to take it.
You're out there. We had a guy at the Rose Bowl once who he was an official. You know, as you know, the officials are all mic'd up, and he kept his. We went to a commercial break. It was a 16-minute mark. I don't know what it was. Something. It was at some timeout. And he kept his mic pack on the field. And he takes out a handkerchief and he blows his nose all over the Rose Bowl. Okay? This is just live air. There's nowhere to hide. And I'm listening to this and I'm telling the sound guy, dude, you got to turn that guy off, man. He said, what guy? You know, he's down there. You got to turn him off. And, you know, he's down. He says, hey, Johnny. And starts screaming at Johnny, the other official. The other official walks up to him. Says, yeah, what do you want, man? He says, did you see that last punt? That kid kicked the beep out of that one, man. And I'm like, did I just hear that? Like, and people are laughing in the stadium. I mean, there's nowhere you can go, man. This is live, you know?
Jim, do you have a microphone voice, or do you use your normal speaking voice? That
It's a
goes
little bit
back
of both.
to the showmanship.
It's a little bit of both. I remember being back in college. Someone from another room said, "Hey, you got a voice for radio." So I've heard that. It's a little bit of both. We're reading a spot during a timeout, the normal voice comes out. But when you're doing intros, when you're doing a call, you definitely have some inflection. But it's a little bit of both. It's mainly my voice, but you tinker with it a little bit.
Patrick, tell me about hanging around your basketball. Go ahead.
I'm the same way as well. I mean, primarily it's me, but you know, I tend to add a little bit to it, and the sound system that we have for a 23,000 seat arena, it just blows it away anyway. So I always know going into it that I don't have to do a whole lot because it's going to be loud regardless.
Yeah, same way on our end. What's it? There, I told you I hadn't had a phone call for 90 minutes, and now I've got one ringing, but I've got the handset inside the desk. So, Patrick, why don't you ask the room a question and let me put this on silent?
Oh gosh, I guess is there any in terms of your pregame preparation? Can you just kind of walk through, what you usually do every game, and every game is different, but just in general, I guess what your routine consists of.
Me, I'll get to the arena for a 7 o'clock tip. I'll get there around 5:30, 5 o'clock or so. I like to watch the warm-ups. I like to go through my sheet and put a face with the name, for the players you don't know on the team. Talk to the other team's SID or media contact, make sure your pronunciations are correct. And from there, just really kind of soak in the environment, talk to the people I'm friends with, try to get to meet people from the other schools, talk to the fans that sit near me, and just really enjoy the moment before the work really kicks in.
I completely agree with you. Two and a half hours before game time, you need to do your prep and your homework. It's extremely important. And the pronunciation thing, pronunciations are very interesting. We've had some guys, Luke Richard Mute, some really wild names, some guys, the esoteric names, Ukropina. We had a kicker for Stanford, Conrad Ukropina. Like, that's just a great name. You love these names, but, getting it right, maybe he pronounces it one way, the other guy pronounces it another way. How do you guys go? I always go with the guy, because it's his name, it's his identity. It's almost like, dude, whatever way you want me to say it, I'll say it, man. How do you work it?
Well, my routine is I'm an hour and a half as well, and I don't like to get in the chair in the building too early because you don't want to lose that sense of anticipation. Thankfully, at Cameron Indoor, normally the visiting SID is just to my left. So if I'm unsure about a student athlete's name, even before I push the button, I'll ask them really quick, the SID, say it to me out loud one more time, and then I'll hit it. And by the time we get into the second half, hopefully the repetition is there.
And you always have that name you just can't pronounce. You get it, but once you pop the mic, nope, no shot.
Because I think there is something about the obligation that you have to the visiting program or to the student athlete or to his family that in your mind, yeah, I've got it, all 6 syllables ready to go. But when the obligation moment hits and you got to push that button, your brain just falls out of your head.
Yes, it does.
True. Have you guys ever had an instance where you see in the other media, the outside media, where they pronounce it differently and it actually is incorrect? Where have you noticed where, the outside media, and you go, guys, you're not doing it correctly. In truth, we never really get that option. Sometimes we do. Steve Lavin will often come into back to Pauley and do a game, or some of the guys, Jay Billis will come in, of course, and do some games in Pauley. But sometimes they blow the names, and you just go, dude, that's not what they like. You ever have that, Patrick? You nodding your head, or
yeah? Oh, completely. It's the best one that I can remember is Rajon Rondo, and who's been in the league now for many years, and you pronounce it Rajon. Now, I've heard it even recently on NBA telecast as everything but that. And again, all you have to do is, how do you like it to be pronounced? It's Rajon. Okay, that's all I need to know. But it's amazing how many people with different names like that, especially with the introduction of so many international players now, that still continue to get it wrong instead of just finding out from the source the right way to do it.
Absolutely correct.
We had Ryan Arcidiacono a couple of years ago. And I don't know if you guys had the pleasure to watch Archie. He was such a great player, but Arcidiacono, it's a name I practiced when I saw he was being recruited to the school. I would practice, I would get out there, and I was saying Arcidiacono, Arcidiaquino. And then when I finally got it down, it was a great name to say, but that's a name all 4 years, even in the multiple tournaments, they never got it right.
Duke had a student athlete last year, last name Duval, and early on in the season it was one way. Later on in the season it was another way. So it rotated between Trayvon and Trevon Duval. See, now I can't even keep it straight, but anytime I knew I had it right because I was in Cameron, I was hearing the name. And to Chuck's point, now I'm watching it on TV and they say it the other way. Now I'm questioning myself when I get back into the seat. Which way is it? Do you guys have a favorite memory?
Boy, I do, and it's this is an easy one, and it's not a UCLA memory, which is really strange. But I did the 2006 Rose Bowl game against Texas USC, and for a football game, that was about as good as it gets to me. It was an instant classic, and literally watching Vince Young at the time, just controlling the team and just bringing Texas on. Not that I'm against USC or anything, being a UCLA guy, but watching him just drive that, it was unbelievable. Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and Pete Carroll on the sideline and Mack on the sideline. It was almost as if the stadium was just being elevated. It was just wild. It was just, am I really a part of this? And this action is just moving on its own pace and just doing its own thing, almost like slow motion. I don't know if you guys, it just kind of occurs, Do you?
Yeah, it was my second or third year doing Villanova, PA. We had back-to-back games at the Wells Fargo Center. 21,000 people. We played Louisville. They were ranked second. 3 days later, we played Syracuse. They were ranked fifth. Beat them both. The Syracuse game went into overtime. Archie Diacono hit a three at the buzzer to put it into OT, and we won that game as well as Louisville a couple of days before. Both games, the students rushed the floor, including over my shoulder. They're coming by. They're stepping on the scores table. That was a little scary, but it was. You look back, it's an absolute blast to having experienced something like that when I was really young into the job.
I've got two, and one is going to play off of Syracuse. The first time that Syracuse came into Cameron as a member of the ACC, in the final moments, and Krzyzewski and Boeheim, very good friends, but in the final moments at a crucial play, there was a block charge, bang, bang, and it went against Syracuse. And Boeheim came up the table, got to about my spot, and then took a hard right onto the floor to dispute the call. So much so that he ripped his jacket off, and that was 1, 2, and that was see you later. The other, unfortunately, is a bit of a sad memory. The game after Coach Smith died from North Carolina, it was the Duke-North Carolina game at Cameron. And there was a moment of silence that took place on the floor by which all student athletes and coaches from both programs came out right as the horn sounded to end the pregame, and they all got down on one knee. And then there was the read for the moment of silence on top of that, one which ESPN took the sound from public address. So not making it about me, but just the way that every element came together to recognize such an icon in collegiate basketball everywhere was really, really neat. But Rupp Arena, good gosh, 12 years with all that's been going on there. Patrick, you got to have at least one memory, right?
I'll tell you my favorite memory is something that, unlike a game, was completely scripted. Where after they won the 2012 title, then the next day they come back into Rupp Arena for the celebration. So having the entire team there and the coaching staff, and the place was filled as they were coming from the airport on a bus right into the floor, literally at Rupp Arena. So that would be my favorite point.
Awesome.
Patrick, we've seen UCLA play Kentucky out here, and we've traded some games recently. Trip, we haven't seen Duke. We haven't seen Villanova in a long time here on the West. When are you guys coming out?
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to do is try to speak on behalf of anyone. My wife will even tell you that if I even bring her name up in conversation, I'm probably going to have a listening session of some type. So I'll just leave that for the schedule masters out there.
I remember.
Hey Chuck, I'll leave Villanova behind. I'll come visit you for a weekend if you want.
Come on
And
out.
anytime to go to LA, any excuse is good with me.
Weather's great out here, man. I'm just saying. Just saying. The last time Duke was out here, actually, Coach K was going in for some back surgery, and I remember very well he couldn't make the game, and the assistant took the game over, and I think Duke lost that game at Pauley. But we wanted to see Coach K, and that actually Coach Wooden was alive then. And, you want to talk, as you guys know, talk about pressure. Coach Wooden went to every game. He would sit behind the team. And to have Coach Wooden there, oh, my goodness gracious, you better, put a spit shine on those shoes, young man. Oh, my goodness.
But talk about those personalities in all of your arenas. Obviously, we've got some very high-profile head coaches. We also have some very notable people that come into the building. Do you feel their presence? I mean, granted, they're the head coach, so they're there. Yes, it's the celebrity, they're there. But do you feel that pressure? Do you feel an obligation? Do you feel like your role has changed because of who is listening?
Not really. I know I was a little nervous when I started because Jay Wright was really coming into his own. as one of the top coaches in the country, and you get a little bit in awe when you see that. But Jay really is the guy you see on TV is the guy you get in him. So really, there is no nerves or any pressure there. Opposing coaches, if you ever get the chance, if Providence comes, Ed Cooley might be the funniest human being on the world. So if you play Providence, I'll find myself staring at him and looking out thinking, I think I just missed something, but Ed said something real funny, which I can't repeat here. But Ed Cooley is, without question, the most charismatic, funniest coach there is. So if you get a chance to see a Providence game, make sure you pay attention to Ed Cooley.
That's so cool. Well, being in LA, Trip and you guys, it's celebrity central. And, we have Jessica Alba and Shaquille O'Neal and all these people just flood in. And when Lonzo was playing a couple years ago, it really became almost like a smaller version of the Lakers, where being around the court was a big see and be seen thing in LA. It's very cool. And for college, it's quite rare because we're on the west side of Los Angeles. So, it's very easy for a lot of these celebs to come down and kind of, become the momentary fan, if you will, where they, it's LA, man. It's all sorts of folks walking in.
I want to wind the time down here. I don't want to keep you guys but so long, but a few thoughts. If we could go around the table, your advice for those up and coming public address announcers or those who feel like that they are in the circle and they want to move through the circle more, what are some do's and don'ts? Patrick, start us off. Do's and don'ts for PA announcing.
My first advice is always the same. It's just be who you are, be yourself. And it's fine to copy elements from other announcers. There's nothing wrong with benchmarking, but at the same time, don't try to pattern yourself so much after one particular announcer that it just doesn't seem genuine. Just be who you are.
Jim?
Have fun. The four of us, we have the honor of announcing the four of the greatest basketball teams in the country right now, which that is fantastic. But even before then, just have fun. If you're starting doing high school basketball, high school football, had fun. When I was a student, I did field hockey, I did lacrosse, I did volleyball, and just really enjoyed it. Took it serious because you got to do the work, you got to prepare, but really just enjoy what you do.
And Chuck, just to dovetail off of that, Jim, you can be serious about it, but my don't is don't be serious about yourself when you do it. Don't have that ego and that presence that I'm the PA guy. Yeah, no, just relax. And to everybody else's point, just be yourself. And preparation, I always use the same spot sheet. I create my own for every game. That way I know where the height is, where the class is, where the hometown is, where my box is to mark the foul. So be consistent in your preparation. So Chuck, what about you?
I love that. Your advice is so great. That's brilliant advice. But for me, it's take the gig. Take the gig. If you're kind of debating within your own mind, well, should I do it? No, take it. And I don't care how small it is. It could be announcing something to a group of 20 people or 10 people. It doesn't matter. What it does is it gets you in front of people and talking and communicating with people and garnering more confidence in yourself to do it in front of 100,000 or 10 million or 100 million people like we've done. It's just take that gig. It's wonderful. It'll help you in your forward progression.
So Jim, what question might you have of this unique group that's been assembled?
Any fun mistakes? We've all had a goof here or there. I know I have a good one. I'll let you guys go first. But any good mistakes where you kind of did something or said something and you're kind of like, uh-oh. You're waiting for a hammer to fall, a shoe to drop somewhere behind you. You get that hook. So anything really good?
Patrick, want to lead on that or Trip?
Yeah, actually, it was a mistake that I didn't know about it until the end of the game. But I remember very well we had a player, wearing the number 1 jersey. Darius Miller, he played for all 4 years, graduated, and then went on to the pros. And then the following year, another player wears number 1, and apparently I subbed in Darius Miller several times during the game, and I had zero recollection of that. So it was actually pretty amusing because I didn't catch any grief about it, but the main guy from the newspaper asked me if I remembered that, and I'm like, it's the first I've heard of it. So
Isn't that
get it
amazing?
quite a bit,
We have that short-term memory that it could have happened 4 seconds ago, and you're like, I didn't say that, did I?
right?
Chuck?
Boy, that's just awesome. I mean, I think the most stupidest thing I've ever done is about 20 years ago, UCLA playing Washington State at the Rose Bowl, and our running back fumbles it for like the fourth time in the game, and I had my hand on the button, and I said, damn it, all over. And I just, oh my goodness, I just lost my mind. And, getting engaged, getting a little bit too involved here. And after the game, Bob Toledo was our coach, and nobody mentioned anything. Nobody mentioned anything from UCLA. I'm kind of going, ooh, I think I avoided this. Maybe I got away with it here. Bob Toledo, the coach of UCLA, comes up and he says, Chuck, did I hear something in the third quarter going on there? Did something happen that you... Yeah, yes, coach. Yes. He said, okay, just wondering. How was that?
My Duke has had two Dawkins in their history. Andre Dawkins, who's the most recent sharpshooter, and then obviously Johnny Dawkins from Coach K's first couple of years. And Andre Dawkins got on a roll a couple of years ago with some three-pointers consecutive, and let's say he had 6 in a row. On the third one, I decided to call him Johnny Dawkins instead of Andre Dawkins. And thankfully, because the noise in camera was so loud, Chuck, I had my cover, so no one had to say a word. I don't even think my show caller next to me was able to hear it. But as soon as I pulled the button up, contrary not to remembering what happened 4 seconds ago, that I remember. And so I mental note, Andre, not Johnny.
That's
So, Jim,
awesome.
you teased us. What's yours?
Well, this goes back to Ed Cooley. We're playing Providence at the Pavilion 4 or 5 years ago. And we have a flip card for the intro. So I get my player, I have my order 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I write a little line from name to position to hometown. But one line sagged a little bit. So I'm doing my starting lineups, A, B, C, D. I get to the last guy, I read the wrong guy, a guy who never plays. So they get out there. The referees have to come to the scorebook. Ed Cooley, not happy, has to come to the scorer's book, and they have to confirm that the book has the correct starting lineup because the PA guy, we won't name names, named the incorrect starting lineup.
That's awesome.
It wasn't awesome that night, I'll tell you that.
Nowhere to go.
There was nowhere to go.
You're suddenly advertising for an airline. You got to get away.
Let's cycle through each with one last question, then we'll call it quits. My question, do you guys still get nervous before you open up the mic for the first time? Or did you ever get nervous? Jim?
A little bit when the season begins, you have some nerves with the new season, new players. Not really. We all do other things. I also do the Big Three League over the summer, the 3-on-3 league started by Ice Cube, which is we travel from city to city. That's a blast. But the last 2 years, the championship game, Fox has taken my intros live. So I've announced these guys for 10 weeks, no problems. But once you get that finger pointing to you saying you're live in front of a couple of million people, the jitters kick in, and I find myself reading just a little bit slower to make sure all my pronunciations are correct. So but to have that is fun because I think we need that, because it can get stale if you don't let yourself get nervous. So to have that happen every now and then makes the job even more fun.
Patrick?
I still to this day get nervous before I turn it on, and I figured that the day that I stop getting nervous is probably time to give it up. Really, I'm just that passionate of a fan to start with. So, I still get a little a little thing in my throat every once in a while when I'm getting ready to announce.
I agree with both of you. I would almost say it's not nervousness, but excitement. And they're very close kind of things, And of course we're excited. If it's a big game, you're going to feel the energy of that crowd lifting you, and you know it. It's right behind you, like a couple of feet behind you. It's just the energy in the building. Trip, what I mean, is there something for you that in that light? Are you
To
excited?
me, it's elevated anticipation.
Yeah.
I have this bad habit of bouncing my left leg, and so I try to channel any of that energy there. And even my wife will tell you at other social events, she'll actually have to reach under the table and actually push my knee down because it thumps like a rabbit. But thankfully, with the scores table, right, nobody can see.
Let me ask you this. I mean, speaking of going to a social event, do you guys get hit with all sorts of questions like you're suddenly the expert of the team and you know the direction of Kentucky and Villanova and Duke basketball and what is wrong with the team and what's going wrong? And you, as the public address announcer, you have the answer. There, I get that.
I think we can all just nod yes, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. Definitely.
You have the answer to everything, right? Yes,
Right.
of course.
Yes. Everybody's best friend on game day. You got tickets? Yeah, hold on. It seats 9,300. I got like 10 tickets here. Jim, final question for the group.
How long do you see yourselves doing this? I know we have all been here for a handful of years. Chuck, you've been the longest. But how long do you see you guys doing? Is there anything that would make you stop?
Nothing would make me stop other than the fact that they are just tired, and I know I'm game by game. My contract is game to game. If they were to call and tell me tomorrow we're making a switch, I've had 9 years. I actually keep notes on the back of each one of my scoring sheets, so I've now got an archive of memories. So if they told me it's tomorrow, I'm okay with that. But another 20 years would be awesome.
It's a gift. You know, we're very, very fortunate. All of us are very, very fortunate to be where we are. And every game is an adventure. Every game is a new one, man. And it goes as long as you can go, man. If we just keep it going. I mean, we're just so fortunate. But there will become a time, when, oh, I forgot the name of that guy. Or, it's like something going on. And it's just time to say farewell. Or maybe change the gig, to another thing. If it's voiceover or doing something else, who knows? But what an honor we have here. We've spoken to millions and millions of people, and do people even know us? Maybe not. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. But I mean, it's really cool, isn't it?
And I'm the same way. I mean, I will do it as long as they want me. That much of a privilege to have been asked to do it. So it's Kentucky basketball is a very big deal in Kentucky. I mean, it is the thing. And just to be entrusted with that responsibility is just such a privilege that as long as they want me, I'll continue to do it.
So Patrick, stay there. You get the last question for the group.
Oh, gosh. Wow. I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay.
I think we pretty much covered most of the things that I would have asked already.
I agree.
I got a question, Trip. I mean, do you guys speak publicly and other things? Do you do other things around, with your voice? Or, obviously, Jim, you're doing some stuff with the big 3-on-3 basketball, right?
I do the big three. I do the big three over the summer. I do other stuff at Villanova. I do football, women's basketball, and I also do news and traffic here in Philadelphia radio in the mornings. So
very cool.
That is tough, when you're getting to work at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning after a 9 p.m. ESPN or, FS1 game the night before. So that makes things rough during the season. But, yeah, it's, we're lucky. We talk for a living, It's not a difficult life.
That's right. You're right. Patrick, I mean, are there things you do around town? Do you use your voice for other stuff?
Yeah. Of course, in Kentucky, all civic groups want you to, come by and, give a little discussion to whether it's church related, something in the community. And I always try to fit those in. Obviously, as we all know, it's harder between November and March. But yeah, I mean, we're just blessed that there's such an interest in it that it does draw a big crowd. And so I love to do it. It's goodwill, and I'm just privileged to do it, so I love it whenever they ask me. Other than that, not really. I guess my job is so different than what I would normally do as a PA announcer that I just use it as a welcome chance to get out and speak.
Yeah, same here. I'm actually a little sheepish when people refer to me as being the voice of Cameron Indoor. I hate that title. To me, there are 9,314 other voices on game day. Mine just happens to be the one with a push to talk button that comes along. So when people do ask, I'm hoping that they're asking because of my ability to hold a microphone, to hold a room at a podium, and that it's not because I'm that guy at that place. I'm happy to be that guy at that place, but I'm hoping this not because I'm just the voice. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's sort of the angle I take.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, for me, I being in LA, I do a lot of voiceover. So, it's kind of led one thing to another. I was the voice on EA Sports NCAA football, the PA announcer on the NCAA football game, and some TV shows in LA. If they need a PA announcer, I'm kind of the PA announcer on the TV show. And from Hawaii 5-0 or NCIS, stuff like that. So it's native to this area. It's just what we do. In LA, it's part of the gig. But,
well, I don't want to speak for Patrick and Jim, but when I grow up, I want to be like you, and I think that Patrick and Jim, when they grow up, they want to be like Chuck White.
Well,
Absolutely.
wow. Yes, exactly. You too can get pummeled by center court. Yes.
Well, guys, I really do appreciate the time. I know that you took a flyer when I reached out to you blindly a couple of weeks ago to put this together, but I'm glad you brought the energy forward. Hopefully those that have watched or those who have listened have pulled a little bit out of it. And again, not wanting to speak for you, but if anybody ever wants to reach out my way to take the conversation further, or if you're a budding PA announcer or whoever else, I'm more than welcome to take that call, and maybe the three of you guys would be the same way.
Sure.
Super.
Absolutely. And
well,
Trev, thank you for putting this together, Trev. I think it's awesome. Like we said originally, it's rare we get together, and how nice of us to just chit chat a little bit. Just wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'll look for your teams not only during the season but on the selection show Sunday as well, as I'm sure all four of us will show up in some form or fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit stop recording, and then we'll all just stick around for another minute or two to wrap up. So thanks for being with us.